Hey there everybody. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I set up my M1 Pro MacBook for software development. We're going to be going over everything starting from tooling to IDE to even productivity. So stick around. Hey there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Pete, and on this channel we talk about everything related to tech and software engineering. And in today's video, we'll be talking about how I set up my M1 Pro MacBook. So this setup video is system agnostic in the sense where you can set this up on any computer of your choice. I'll be doing it on an M1 Pro MacBook because that's what I recently purchased. In addition to that, I'm not going to go through the process of installing software. Rather, what I'm going to show you is when it comes to some of these tools that I use, I'll be showing you some of the custom configurations that you wouldn't traditionally get out of the box with these tools. First tool that we're going to go over is Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code is my preferred IDE of choice, and I'll kind of walk you through some of the custom configurations that I would do for Visual Studio Code. Starting with the first one, which is installing the code command in your terminal. So installing the code command is essentially a quick way to allow you to just type in the keyword code in a relative path, and essentially what it does is it opens up Visual Studio Code in that relative path. Alright, so to install the code command in Visual Studio Code, I already have Visual Studio Code downloaded, so I'm just going to pull this back up, and I'm going to hit Command-Shift-P, which is going to bring up my shortcuts taskbar, and in here there's this command, shell command, install code command in path. I'll go ahead and click this. And now what I can do is I'll pull up the terminal window, and right here you can see you can open up a relative path, which will essentially open up Visual Studio Code within that directory that you specified. Now the second configuration that I use for Visual Studio Code is Code. And if you never heard of Code, essentially it's a monospaced font, and what it enables is that for, let's say, languages like JavaScript, where equals and not equals is up to 3 characters, it turns that into one single logical character. So it's easier for you to parse and scan through code because you're not sitting there and reading 3 different characters. It's essentially combined into one single character. So it's a lot easier for us to kind of read through code bases. Now, this is probably one of my favorite configurations that I do for Visual Studio Code. All right, so to get started with Code, I'm going to need to download a few different fonts. So I will leave a link to this particular URI in the description of the video, but essentially I need to download Code v6.2.zip. So I already have this downloaded under my downloads folder, and under there, there's a TTF folder as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the different types of fonts, and I'm going to open this with Font Book. I'm going to go ahead and click Install Font. Now, once this is installed, what I'll do is I'll head over to Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to go to Code, Preferences, and Settings, and under the commonly used text editor, there's a font tab right here, which you need to make sure that Code is in here. I've already inputted this value as the font family. And in addition to that, there's font ligatures where you can edit in settings.json, and editor.fontligatures needs to be set to true. Now, once these settings are in place, I'm going to go ahead and just create a test file, and we'll use JavaScript because JavaScript allows us to do that double not equals. So now you can see that all these different operations that you would do in JavaScript, although they are 3 characters or 2 characters, they are depicted as one single logical token, which is a lot easier for you to scan and parse. So the third configuration that I set up for VS Code is an extension, and this extension is Git Blame. So imagine you're working and you come across some of the most atrocious code that you've ever seen. What? What is this? Now, using Git Blame within seconds, you can essentially see what line and what commit brought that specific piece of code in. And it's just a really quick way to find out what specific line of code was committed by who. All right, so moving on to another tool that I have some custom configurations for is Git. So one of my favorite configurations that I use for Git is called Git aliases. So what Git does not do for you is it doesn't infer your command. So for example, if you type in git st, it doesn't infer that you're trying to type out git status. So using Git aliases, what you can do is you can essentially map specific alias commands to what their actual command is. And we're going to walk through how I set up Git aliases. All right, so to get started with Git aliases, where I'm currently at is I've got a terminal window open and I am in a directory called Python, which is a Git repository. So what I'm going to do is I'd like to set up an alias for the command git status. And rather than type out status each and every single time, I want to map this to st. So I have this command, which I've already copied over. It's git config -- global alias.st. And basically this st is now going to map to that status command. So now if I do git st, you'll notice that it runs actually git status. And it's just a quicker way for me to work with some of those git operations. So the next tool that I have custom configurations for is a tool called Zeesh or Zshell. Now, interesting name. Nonetheless, what Zeesh or Zshell is it's essentially an extended version of the Unix shell. So it comes with a lot of different capabilities around that. One of my favorite capabilities of Zeesh is its autocomplete system. It's very sophisticated. What you can do with it is, let's say you're trying to navigate to a particular directory. What you can do is you can just prefix your command with a substring of the directory, and you can rotate between various different folders which have that exact substring. And I'll walk you through how I set up Zeesh on a new computer as well. Now, in addition to Zeesh, there's a plugin or an add-on which you can use on top of it called Zeesh. And this is essentially an open source framework for this particular tool. And it comes with a bunch of different custom configurations like themes, helper functions, things of that sort. I'll also walk you through the theme that I use and how to essentially set up your Zeesh.rc file to configure the theme, as well as some of the customizations that I would generally go through as well. All right, so to get started with Zeesh, I'm over here at omyz.sh. This website right here. I'll have the link to this in the description as well. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to head over to the installation section right here, and you can install omyz through this curl statement or through wget. I'll be using the curl statement, so I'll go ahead and copy that, and then I'll head over to my terminal. Then here I'll just paste over that curl statement. Give that a moment. And now you can see that there are some differences in the terminal session already from downloading omyz. So the first thing that I want to show you is I have these three directories here. So I have dir1, dir2, and dir3. And one of the neat things that I like with Zeesh is that I can now just prefix it with the substring of dir. And what I can do now is, as I hit tab, it rotates between all the variations of that specific substring. So it's very, very easy to go between various different directories. Now, the last thing that I want to do is I want to do some configurations in terms of the theme. So I'm going to head over to this themes tab right here. And the one that I specifically like is called AF Magic. So I'll go ahead and copy over this theme. And once again, I'll leave the link to this in the description of the video. So now I'll head back over to my terminal. And in here, we're just going to have to go back to the home directory. And if you list all the hidden files, you'll notice that there is a file called .zeesh.rc. So we'll go ahead and copy that and open it up. And I'm going to use Nano to open this up. And as I mentioned, under the Zeesh theme, I can go ahead and change this to AF-Magic. And we'll go ahead and exit this, make those changes, save it. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to source our Zeesh.rc file. So there you go. So now you'll see that the terminal session has been changed to now have AF Magic. And one of the reasons why I like AF Magic is because your commands are actually broken up with line breaks. So it makes your commands very easy to distinguish from one another. All right, so for this last section, I'm going to kind of rapid fire through tools that I would install. I'm not going to go through the installation process as I mentioned because I use them in a very generic way. So starting off with the first one is going to be Notion. I like using Notion as a productivity app because a lot of the themes that come from Notion are very handy, especially from a software engineering perspective. And I also just like Notion as a whole. The user experience is very fluid, and I've just enjoyed using it for all of my note-taking needs that I have. Second is Docker and Docker Hub. Docker specifically if I'm trying to get up and running with an application very quickly and I don't have some of the runtimes or specific software downloaded on my computer. And number two, Docker Hub, because I like using Docker Hub to just browse a lot of those popular images and kind of have those handy whenever I am doing any sort of software development. Number three is IntelliJ. So I like using IntelliJ for any of my Java-based development. So I do work with Java as well, and specifically any of the Maven projects that I work with, I really enjoy using IntelliJ. Moving on to the last tool that I install is going to be Postman. And I like using Postman for all of my HTTP testing needs. And in addition to that, there's a very nifty way for you to take an HTTP request and convert it over to a curl statement. And I find this very useful. So those are all the custom configurations and tools that I use when I set up a new laptop. I will leave a link to all the configurations and tools that I used in this video in the description. If you enjoyed watching the video, please consider liking and subscribing. And in addition to that, if there is a tool that you use which you think boosts your developer productivity, post it in the comment section below and I'll check it out. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.